featured in the book between India's former chief of the Research and Analysis Wing and Asad Durrani, retired Director General of Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, has created a huge storm in Atiqa. Through most of his 40-year career, General Hasnain has served in turbulent environments and hotspots. One of India's most decorated generals, General Hasnain has six decorations awarded by the President of India and 2 by the Army Chief. General Dr. Rakesh Sharma was commissioned into the Gorkha Rifles and has served in all parts of India in his 40-year career. A highly decorated soldier with a PhD in defense studies, he is a regular speaker at seminars and writes for newspapers and military journals. Every year, as you may be knowing, the Khushwant Singh Lit Fest dedicates one session to the Military Literature Festival. Mr. A.S. Dulat's session with General Atta Hasnain and General Sharma is the particular dedication this year for the Military Lit Fest. So we leave you to hear about 2 spooks in a spy.
Good afternoon, Jai Hind, Sat Sri Akal. Great to be back here to the best audience in any festival anywhere around the country. May I say, I have attended almost every single literary festival in the country. But the quality which you get here, the quality of audience which you get here, cannot be matched in any part of the country. I'd say can't be matched in any part of the world. With that, great to be back here in Kasauli. Last time you saw me was 2 years ago when I was with Kanhaiya on the stage here, if you remember. Today I've got a character who is even greater than Kanhaiya. Right? I'm sorry he may get very offended by I'm calling him a character, but he really is a character by himself. One of the most prolific spooks that India has ever produced. And in conversation with the spook from our adversary country who went and produced a book. Wonderful. Let me read the first opening thing of this book, a verse by Sadat Hasan Manto, pointing to the horizon where the sea and the sky are joined. The sea and the sky are India and Pakistan in this case. Pointing to the horizon where the sea and the sky are joined, he says, it is only an illusion because they can't really meet. But isn't it beautiful, this union which isn't really there? The union cannot take place, but everyone imagines that it is taking place. Everyone's imagination, especially in Punjab particularly, this imagination is always there. We wish we had never divided, wish we were part of the same country together. With all these emotions and sentiments which are always present in an audience of this kind, veterans, older generation, serving people, young people, there can't be a better person than Mr. A.S. Dulat, former head of RAW, one of the very intellectual spooks. I always say spooks are always intellectual, but he is one of the most intellectual spooks. Decided upon this to write a book, written one book before, and write a book in conversation with a chief spook of another country, and that has become a bestseller. The only thing that one can ask him is, and which a lot of people have accused him, that how did he feel? Did he feel very nationalistic while writing this book? Or did he feel very anti-national while writing this book? I'm sure he'll answer that. In the next 35 minutes, precision, military-like division. You've heard me for 1.5 minutes. You're going to hear Mr. Dulat for the next 10 minutes talking about his book. And I've got General Rakesh Sharma with me, who will speak a little after that. And then a little conversation for about 10 to 12 minutes to give enough time to have at least 3 to 4 questions from the audience. So now it's over to Mr. Dulat to introduce his book, this fascinating book, and tell us how he got the idea, how did the concept emerge, and what are his real thoughts behind it.
Thank you very much, General Saab. I don't know how this is called two spooks and a general. There are two generals and a spook. And I feel like a poor Kashmiri with Afspa to the left of me and Afspa to the right of me. So, yeah, it's always a pleasure, always a privilege to be back in Kasauli. And Rahul and Nilofer, thank you very much for having us here. For Paran, of course, this is home. And for me, it's more than home because my in-laws spoiled me so much here. So it's great. Coming to the book, yeah, it's quite an unusual book, quite unique, unprecedented, because this has never happened before. No two spooks anywhere in the world, not even the Brits and the Americans can get together. And here, two crazy coots from the most hostile countries have put together a book. So the question which General Saab asked me, and which always arises, is that how did this book happen? And when I think back, I feel the book happened the day I met General Durrani. Because somehow, although we are poles apart as people, but somehow we got to know each other quite well and we gelled together. And this became obvious at our frequent track to meetings. And some years back in a meeting in Istanbul, the sponsor said, "You two guys are always together. You seem to have no problem. Why don't you write a book?" And the general had a hearty laugh and he said to me, he said, "You know, even if we were to write fiction, nobody would believe it." So we left it at that. A year or so later, we were at one of these annual pugwash shows in Berlin. And there again, we were prompted that why don't you, if you can't write a book immediately, write a paper. And so we wrote a paper on intelligence cooperation, which was published simultaneously by the Dawn in Pakistan and by the Hindu in India. And after that, we wrote a joint paper on Kashmir, which never got published, but it's on the website of the University of Ottawa. And then, lo and behold, my first book came out. And I think this surprisingly went down rather well in Pakistan. And when I asked the general, he said, "No, it's a good book." And I think that is actually what encouraged or prompted him to agree to do a book together. That's how this book came about. I don't think either of us thought that the reaction would be what it has been in both countries. General Saab raised this question about national and anti-national. I never even thought about it. But the general across has been in a bit of a bother. And I've had my share of criticism or brickbats or whatever, dirty names. But that's all part of the game. And when the general got into trouble, interestingly, I got a lot of calls from Pakistan. And I think one of the generals in Pakistan was getting after our general, Durrani. And one of the things he picked on, in this book, there is a chapter or a part of a chapter on Nepal, in which the general has spoken at great lengths on what he thought of the situation in Nepal at that point of time. And when my turn came, I said, well, I was mostly playing cricket. So the general who was accusing Durrani in Pakistan said, "See how smart the RNAW guy is? You've gone and revealed so much. And that guy says he only played cricket. So when I was questioned on this TV show, I said, this is the truth. The General Saab knew so much about Nepal, whereas I was enjoying myself during my tenure of 4 years in Kathmandu. And I mostly played cricket, so this is the truth. I was not then an intelligence officer, or at least I was not doing intelligence work. So that's how it has been. But the more it's been criticized, the more the book has sold, and it has done better than the first book. There are a lot of things here. I don't know how far the General Saab will allow me to go, but I think one other thing, I've got both my books here right now. So, yeah, if I might take 5 minutes to talk on Kashmir, where I think we have created a total mess in the last couple of years. Because if we go back, and this book, my first book is called Kashmir, the Vajpayee years. Those were pretty good years, 2002 to 2008. Kashmir had almost complete peace. We had a ceasefire with Pakistan in 2003, which held for quite a while. And we had a leader in Pakistan who, to my way of thinking, has been the most reasonable in the last 30 years. I'm referring to General Musharraf. He was the villain, of course, of Kargil, but then after that he said, let's forget about Kargil, let's move on. And he did move on. And because of him, Pakistan did hold back in Kashmir, and that is how terrorism came down. Also, we had a leader in our own country, a prime minister who I think has been one of our finest prime ministers, Vajpayee, who thought differently. And it was his belief that this permanent confrontation with Pakistan has to end, and that in Kashmir we have to move forward. And that is why, if there is one leader, one Indian leader who is revered in the valley even today, it is Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Recently, when the great man passed away, I happened to be in Jaipur, and I called a senior Kashmiri leader, and I said, what is the news in Srinagar? And he said, यहाँ तो सिर्फ अटल जी की बात हो रही है. And he said, we got the news that Vajpayee was critical in AIIMS, and he said, across Srinagar, in homes and in mosques, people have been praying for his recovery. Of course, that was not to be. And let me also tell you that a lot of people came from Srinagar to Delhi to attend Vajpayee's cremation. And I could go on and on, but the fact of the matter is that he was a humanist, and therefore he looked at it like that. Once when he was asked at the airport, when he was leaving Srinagar, he was accosted by a whole lot of journalists, and at that time he was talking about talks with the Kashmiris, and they said, are these talks going to be within the ambit of the Constitution, which is a very silly question in any case to ask a Prime Minister of India. But Vajpayee being Vajpayee, he said, ये हम फजूल बातें क्यों करते हैं? हम बात होगी इंसानियत के दायरे में. And that the Kashmiri has never forgotten. So there's much more that we can talk about Kashmir, but I think I'll put a stop here.
What I'll do is I'll request General Rakesh Sharma to pose a question or a query to Mr. Dullat, and we will take the conversation from there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I say I enjoyed reading the book, sir. It is written with immense amount of
Thank you.
candor and clarity. So I have one structural and two small substantive issues that I wish to raise with you. And as you said, sir, any critique of the book will help you sell more. I think we'll sell 150 more by the evening. Structural is, sir, that you compare your previous book with this book. The second book, of course, is earth-shaking because two spooks have written together. But don't you feel it loses the impact of a book which is written in all seriousness by the conversational method? You know, it's easy to read, but the strength of the argument gets subsumed in the casualness of the banter of talk. So after some time, you get involved in the banter and not in the substantive issues. That's my structural questions. My substantive two issues, sir. One is that in a part of a conversation, General Durrani states that he preferred something called a choreographed response or a choreographed surgical strikes. When he says this, and I didn't find a contestation by you in that book in the reference to choreographed response, meaning that if you make a council of spies between the Indians and the Pakistanis, which is a super secret body, and when India is hit by a terrorist act, that council will tell you what to hit back in Pakistan. The targets will be given by that council. And Pakistanis themselves, please hit us at A, B, C. And then this is to assuage the political feeling and the feeling of the public here. And then subsequently, you give them a target which they will respond by. The very casualness of mention that a terrorist act like a Uri act where 19 people died, and you are casually talking, okay, we will give you a target to hit which is inconsequential. Actually, it is making joke of the public opinion and the opinion of the people, including the soldiers who die. So I think that choreographed response, and he said, next time you do a choreographed surgical strike, I thought it was a kind of a slap on our face. My second issue is the CBMs. So you, in this summation, mentioned CBMs, which should be a way forward. In the course of last 70 years, we have 6 treaties with Pakistan. From Liaquat Pandit Nehru Pact of 1951, we have 6 formal treaties. We have 17 formal CBMs in the course of last 30 odd years. And all of them, some of them have stood ground. As you know, on 1st of every year, we exchange nuclear information, etc. Some have not hold. But the fact is, sir, that these CBMs and what Mr. Vikram Sood writes in the book is that they are unlikely to succeed because there is an issue. The best CBM is to address terror, which is not being addressed in this issue. So I find a dichotomy in the CBM issue. And I end here, sir, that would you also like to say that we mentioned just now and in the book, 2012 onwards, you mentioned, sir, that it is largely an indigenous struggle in Kashmir. I think the Pakistani angle has been kind of underplayed. Yours.
No, I don't think it's been underplayed in the book at all. If I might start with your last point. The point, if it has been made in the book, memory fails me now, but the point I'm trying to make is that the situation has never been as bad as it is now in the last 2 years. Actually, it goes back to the 2014 election and the result that it produced. Okay, is that better? My apologies. Yeah, the point I was making was that Kashmir has never been worse than it is, or it has been in the last 2 years. And it goes back to 2014 as a consequence of the result. Many people, many Kashmiris have from time to time reacted on that, but let me just quote one quote, and that came from the Chief Minister's brother, Tasadduq Mufti, who once said that this alliance or this coalition that we have formed with the BJP has been a crime, and the Kashmiris will never ever forgive us for this. and it is going to lead to nothing but bloodshed for a whole generation. And in a way, that's exactly what is happening. Of course, Umar Abdullah reacted very promptly and said that after what Tasadduq had said, the PDP had no business being in government. But that's another story. What is the other? Yeah. It is not. You see, when the general suggests choreographing a response, he's not being trivial at all. In fact, even in this first book, if you've read this, there is mention of what General once suggested to me, and I was taken by surprise. This was, I think, 2011 in Islamabad. We were there for, I think, Pagwash or Aman Ki Asha, one of those conferences, and at the end of it, at about 5 o'clock in the evening, on a hot June evening, he said to me, "Would you like to have a drink?" And I said, "A drink from where?" We were staying at the Marriott Hotel. He said, "I've got a bottle in my dicky and I'll bring it to your room." And we sat down and we had a drink, and then we were talking about, can we cooperate on the intelligence this thing? Because as I said, we'd done a paper. And he came up with this incredible suggestion. He said, like when, maybe sir, you're too far back, can you come forward? I'm now almost shouting. So he said, in reference to what happened in Mumbai, he said, we understand. And when Mumbai happened, let me also tell you that the Pakistani establishment and even those who'd retired by then were quite shaken up by what happened in Bombay. And it was in that context that he said, next time something like this happens, you will possibly have to react. And he said that if we had a proper understanding between the agencies, then we could choreograph it. We could tell you that, okay, you could tell us that, now look, we have to react. And we could tell you how to do it, where to do it. So that is what he was implying. I don't think he was belittling the army in any way. Actually, if he was belittling anybody, it was his own country that, you can come in here and bomb us in Muzaffarabad or wherever it is. And then if we need to do something, we'll let you know, that kind of thing. Actually, coming to this whole business of, surgical strike, when it happened a couple of years back, I happened to be in Nagpur, and some TV channel got after me and said, "What do you think of the surgical strike?" As you know, since then there have been so many reactions by so many people, mostly from the army, that I don't have to say too much. But I was asked this question, and I said, I've just seen the DGMO on television, and our DGMO says, we've done what we had to do, we don't intend to do anything more, and the Pakistanis are okay with that. So what better surgical strike could you have when nothing happened? And yet we made so much of it. We were celebrating surgical strike day recently. I mean, how far, what are we trying to do? That's nationalism for you, sir. Pure and simple, unadulterated nationalism. But like a general, and I think he must be one of my in-laws because he is a General Garewal, who said that how far is the government going to use the armed forces for their own political ends?
So we'll keep that aside for a moment. I want to only query you on one aspect. In this audience, I'm not sure the perception, how strong it is, about what really happens on track 2. Everyone knows track 1 is, you have both the governments formally agreeing to meet each other and taking a peace process forward. But your entire book is written on an experience of track 2. And this common friend of ours, Peter Jones, who's the man who runs the Ottawa Dialogue, is the person who's the virtual interlocutor in this. I think it'll be good for the audience just to be told, what do you think about the track 2 process? Do you think it can at all lead to anything? Is it serious enough? Or as General Rakesh Sharma says, it is actually trivialization of a very serious issue with a lot of generals, a lot of diplomats, and a lot of academics sitting together over scotch, 5-star hotels and business class tickets. Could you give a little clarification on this? And to follow up that, I just want you to answer very briefly. Do you think Kashmir is lost to India?
I'll answer,
Just that, Kashmir, do you think it is lost to India?
I'll answer all that. You're right. You also attended these track 2 meetings. So actually nothing happens in track 2 because nothing happens even in track 1. So why are we blaming track 2? Track 2 is only an effort to get together and try and understand each other and get the other side's point of view. And you're right, you get a free jaunt and you get good whiskey to drink. Nothing wrong with that. Coming to Kashmir, and before I come to Kashmir, this whole business of track 1 and track 2, I have never understood in all these years that why are we on permanent kuti with Pakistan? What purpose does it serve? You know, there is a clear distinction between talking, dialogue and negotiating. Why is it that we do not even want to talk to Pakistan? How much bigger a sulk do we want to go into now? And what sense does it make? What profit does it give us? Coming to Kashmir, sir, let me assure you, Kashmir is not lost. Kashmir will never be lost. But Kashmir is in a hell of a mess. And let me tell you that this is not the way to deal with Kashmir or to deal with any insurgencies. I can cite you any number of examples that you want. The most classic one is the 1950 insurgency in Malaya, which the British had to deal with. And 1950 in Malaya, the British had to deal with a very serious insurgency, and that is when they wrote a handbook on how to deal with insurgency. It was written by a Field Marshal Templar and a General Harry Briggs, and that handbook still holds good for most of the world. In fact, it was used even by our army in Kashmir. The crux or the gist of that is we need to win the hearts and minds of people. No insurgency can be policed out. No insurgency can be won just through force. You cannot. And as they say, that chimpanzees who are nearest to humans, even they, when they are vulnerable or in trouble, they negotiate. But here we have human beings who are so stubborn that they will not want to talk. Let me quote another great man, another former US Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, who once said that the best way to deal with your adversary is through your ears. Keep your ears open. In Kashmir today, nobody wants to listen. And I think that's a great tragedy, that you do not want to listen to your own people. We call Kashmir our toot ang. And look at the way we are treating Kashmir. This great muscular policy of ours failed the day it began.
Sir, before we throw open the house and get at least one or two questions, if I may very briefly just ask you, this is largely a military audience, lots of military people here. And there are suggestions many times to say that if all the civilians have failed between India and Pakistan, why don't you give the militaries a chance to speak to each other? What do you think of that? As a non-military person, but a spook, and a very important spook at that.
Sir,
what do you think?
I'm all for it. I've been advocating it. Now you say track 2 is no good, but I said track 2 is damn good. And I think one of the best track 2s has been the military to military track 2. It's out of that military to military track too that we have now started a spook to spook track too. And that's how that book was born. So military to military, I think, is the best track too. I don't see any reason why our DGMOs don't go from Delhi to Lahore or Islamabad and back. And I don't see any reason why we don't invite General Bajwa to Delhi.
Thank you, sir. Would there anyone who would like to ask a query the Mr. Dulat? First hand up, yeah.
Can you come up a little bit? I'm a little hard of hearing.
All of us are, everyone in the army is also deaf anyway.
So, my question to you is...
I'll repeat the question. Oh, why don't you come here? Come.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, my question to you is, in the beginning, you said that how you gelled well with General Durrani and you co-authored a book with him. It was a result of your friendship with him. And in the first page of your book, as Mr. Syed read, that you said that India and Pakistan can never get along. You two, being firm nationalists of your respective countries, got along. Why do you think that other people like us cannot get along? Why do you think that India and Pakistan cannot get along when you two firm nationalists got along?
Thank you very much for that question, because that actually is what this book is all about. A hope that somewhere somebody will realize that if two spooks, hostile spooks, can talk to each other, then what is the reason or why is it that India and Pakistan cannot talk? That's exactly what this book is about. Thank you.
Thank you,
I think
sir.
you've expressed a very important sentiment for this audience. Can we have one last question? If anyone else wishes to query Mr. Dulat. Yeah, I can see a hand there. Yes, sir.
My question is very simple. Are we following the wrong people as far as we're concerned? And we are following a very Israeli policy in India as far as Kashmir is concerned. For me, that is totally wrong, because that is a very, very confrontationalist policy. Whether that is correct or not, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't like it, frankly.
Sir, even the Israelis have not always followed the same policy. They've been Israelis and they've been Israelis. And I can tell you, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name now, I'm getting old. But my contemporary, when I was heading the RNAW, and he was heading the Mossad, and he headed the Mossad for almost 10 years, he was all for dialogue. He was all for negotiation. And let me quote you another Israeli Prime Minister, Rabin, who shook hands with Arafat very reluctantly. But when he shook hands with Arafat, he said after that, he said one makes peace only with one's enemies, not with one's friends.
You still have a minute. Anyone more? Anyone else who wishes to ask? Going? No. Jal Sharma, would you like to sum up, very briefly, just sum up before we again hand it over to Mr. Dulat to give the last comment?
I have a issue regarding status quo. Now, a large part of the book refers to status quo between what the Indians want and what the Pakistanis want. And there is kind of consensus that comes out that Indians want status quo. That even if we go an offensive policy sometime, a muscular policy, we are having the policy to bring back a status quo in affairs, and we are happier as a situation is. And of course, you have not agreed in this book with what General Durrani says about Indians being status quo. I mean, the government or people or even the militaries would be happier to see peace prevailing in whichever form, with or without any muscular policies. Status quo is not what we want, sir.
Exactly. That's the whole argument, you know. General Durrani, of course, talks about stable stalemate. Then now he talks about a strategic stalemate. And I said, I don't believe in either of these, General Saab. I don't believe in status quo. Because a status quo is to your advantage, to Pakistan's advantage. And that is why, because of this status quo and this muscular policy, Pakistan is again having a free ride in Kashmir. It's very sad that we say the status quo is good enough. It's not good enough. We need to talk. We need never to stop talking to the Kashmir. Look at the tragedy of Kashmir, really. It's so sad that we say we will not talk to the separatists, whoever they are. And yet, here is one of our greatest prime ministers shaking hands with the separatists. Okay, you don't want to talk to the separatists. What about the mainstream? At this point of time, if you know Kashmir and if you're looking at Kashmir, the ones who are suffering the maximum is the mainstream, what we call the mainstream. And what a tragedy that nobody talks to even Dr. Farooq Abdullah, by far the tallest Kashmiri leader. And that even on Dr. Farooq Abdullah, from time to time, aspersions can be cast that he is anti-national. If Farooq is anti-national, then believe you me, there is nobody who is secular or nationalist in Kashmir, maybe in large parts of this country.
Oh, well, we're going to wind up this session. Very, very briefly, in 30 seconds, if I may just tell you an update today. Yesterday, you had the killing of Manan Wani, supposed to be the second Burhan Wani. It was celebrated everywhere on Twitter, etc. But we all need to ask ourselves one question. Alongside the celebration of the killing of Manan Wani, what do we know about what's happening in South Kashmir? You may kill 250 terrorists, but ultimately 250 more will be produced in the same year. The issue is not about killing 250 terrorists, because the last 250 will never be killed. The question is, how can we make a difference to make sure that 250 are not produced? That is the essential thing. And the last part, to act as the devil's advocate here, although everyone is talking, the panel is talking about talks with Pakistan and engagement with Pakistan, there is there's a very large segment of people in India who question and say, can talks and terror go hand in hand? That's an issue which has not been answered here. Maybe we can answer it separately some other time.
Talks, you're right, sir, talks and terror can't go together. But then Pakistan is a very exceptional state, and they themselves suffer so much from terror that if you want to talk to Pakistan, then I think you'll have to make an exception here. You can start by talking about terror, but I'm never able to understand why we are afraid of talking about Kashmir. Why are we so afraid of the K word? I think Pakistan has much more to answer on Kashmir than we have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.